He went in and asked God. God asked him, what is your problem? He said, the same issue, military was establishment, no stability and all that. God said, no solution for the next 25 years. So Nawaz Sharif started crying. God asked him, why are you crying? He said, I will not be the Prime Minister to see that wonderful day. Next was Ronald Reagan, and he went in. God asked him, what is your problem? So he said, again, same ethnic problems. US is not able to deal with other countries at an arm's length issues and all that. So when will we have a very congenial atmosphere in the US? God said, not for the next 40 years. So Reagan started crying. God asked him, why are you crying? He said, I will not be alive to see that day. Last but not the least was Mrs. Indira Gandhi, and this is a made-up joke. So Mrs. Indira Gandhi went in and God asked her, what is your problem? So I want transformation from green to evergreen revolution. We want biohappiness. I want to know when will this country achieve that particular target date. God started crying. So Indira Gandhi asked God, why are you crying? So God said, I will not be alive to see that date. So it's a joke. But having seen the zeal, the enthusiasm on the sessions that have happened from yesterday to today, and particularly Renu Swarup's very telling statement in the earlier session to say that time is from concept to execution, from thinking to action. We have enough thoughts on the table, we need to act. I'm absolutely sure that this is going to be, that particular conversation is going to be dismissed, and we are going to have a day where the whole biohappiness is going to turn into reality, and our call from green to evergreen is going to be a real thing to look at, savor and digest in very few years from now on. So that is the positive note in which I want to start this session. We have an excellent panel here and a wonderful co-chair. Mr. Himanshu has been introduced. So I have to now introduce two speakers who are going to hold the fort for this particular keynote session, and Mr. Himanshu will moderate it. First is Dr. Maximo Torero Colon. He is online, and he is the Chief Economist of the Food and Agriculture Organization. He joined the organization in January 2019 as Assistant Director General for the Economic and Social Development Department. Prior to joining FAO, he was the World Bank Group Executive Director for Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Paraguay, Peru, and Uruguay since November 2016. And before the bank, Mr. Torero led the Division of Markets, Trade and Institutions at the International Food Policy Research Institute. His major research work lies mostly in analyzing poverty and in policies oriented towards poverty alleviation based on the role played by infrastructure, institutions, and how technological breakthroughs or discontinuities can improve the welfare of the households and small farmers. His experience encompasses Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Asia. Dr. Maximo Torero is going to take us through a very interesting subject: global trade in agro-food commodities, circular economy in agriculture and policies, and institutions for evergreen revolution. Following that, I'm going to ask Dr. Torero, who is online, to do the first presentation, but I'll quickly introduce Professor Nitya Rao. She actually needs no introduction. She is the Professor, Gender and Development at the University of East Anglia, United Kingdom, and Director of the Norwich Institute of Sustainable Development. Professor Nitya Rao is part and parcel of the MSSRF, and she will be the second speaker. So without much any more delay, I would ask Dr. Maximo Torero Colon to make the first presentation. Over to you, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much for the kind invitation. Let me share my screen with the presentation I'm going to do today, which is an extremely interesting topic and which is looking at global trade in agri-food commodities, circular economy in agriculture, and policies and institutions for evergreen revolution. I hope you can see my slides properly. Perfect. So let me start first with what we are going to touch today. So the presentation will cover 5 key themes. One, I will start with evolving trends in global agri-food systems trade. I will then move to India's growing role in agri-food markets. Following that, I will discuss recent shifts towards circular economy principles and highlight FAO's contribution to the circular economy agenda. And I will conclude with some final remarks on the challenges faced and opportunities in agricultural transformation. Today, discussion takes place against a backdrop of profound transformation in the global agri-food system trade landscape. But since the early 2000s, globalization and trade have expanded significantly, as you can see in the graph. Food and agricultural trade nearly quintupled, rising from $400 billion in 2000 to 2.1 trillion in 2023. The calories carried through food trade more than doubled between 2000 and 2021, reaching close to 5,000 trillion kilocalories. Adjusted for population growth, is translated into an increase from 930 kilocalories per person per day into 2,000 to more than 1,600 kilocalories in 2021. So a significant increase. We just launched also what we call the State of Food and Agriculture, where we look the significant role that trade has also on nutrition and how it will help to increase diversity of the diets, but at the same time how we need to be careful in certain countries which are more import dependent to minimize problems of overweight and obesity. Now, out of the total production of wheat, 25% is traded across borders. And just to give you an example on one commodity, and this is not counting intra-trade between the EU. Largest exporters are the Russian Federation, the European Union, Australia, Canada, and the United States of America. The largest importers are Egypt, Indonesia, Turkey, China, and Algeria. Similarly, for coarse grains, out of which 3/4 is maize, out of the total production of maize, 15% is traded across borders. Again, not counting the EU trade. Largest exporters are the United States of America, Brazil, Argentina, and Ukraine. And the largest importers are Mexico and the European Union, Japan, and China. For wheat, in 2025-2026, the latest aggregation indicates that growth in wheat production is expected to outpace an increased utilization, leading to a slight recovery of global wheat stocks, and global wheat trade is forecast to partially recover from the previous season decline, largely driven by anticipated rebound in import demand from Asia. For global coarse grains, global coarse grain production in 2025 is forecast at 1,262 million tons, up 3.5% from the previous year. And global coarse grains utilization in 2025-2026 is expected to increase by 0.3% from 2024 and 2025. And forecasts for global coarse grain stocks are set to increase by 3.6% in 2025-2026. Global trade in coarse grains in 2025-2026 is forecast to decline by 0.6% from 24 to 25 level, and global maize trade in 25 to 2026 is expected to decrease by 1.9% to 182.8 million tons. International trade in barley and sorghum is projected to rise in 2025 to 2026 by 2.8% and 15.3% respectively. And we can go ahead and look at the different commodities, but what I wanted to show is how important trade is in the world and how important it is for basic staples, but also for high-value commodities. Now, the establishment of the World Trade Organization in 1995, along with the rise of the regional trade agreements, the RTAs, play a critical role in enabling this expansion. WTO rules have contributed to a more predictable and rules-based environment for trade, also impacting on the network of food trade. Moreover, supply chains have also become more sophisticated, integrating green and digital technologies, including innovations such as artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things. These technologies, along with big data analytics, are playing a crucial role in improving transparency and efficiency while reducing the cost of cross-border agri-food trade. As a result, compared to 1995, countries trade more with each other, and participation from low and middle-income economies has grown. Especially, FAO analysis show the rising prominence of China in global agricultural markets, as you can see in the graph. But it's important also to understand that we are talking of global value chains. That means that they cross at least 3 borders. And when we look at the data today, it's amazing to see how we can even trace from where the food comes from and where the different elements of processed products in the agri-food system, the agri-food industry, are decomposed through traceability, through artificial intelligence, and through blockchain technologies. So these allow us to have enormous tools to be able to track and to look at the evolution of trade and to see how important this will be when we look especially at bioeconomy and when we look at the topic of this presentation. So circular economy transforms agri-food systems by minimizing waste, enhancing resource efficiency, increasing resilience and productivity, and supporting environmental and social sustainability. The core behind this concept is to assure that we have good food for all for today and tomorrow, in the sense that we want to increase efficiency, but we also want to reduce the effects over our environment and assure sustainability, minimizing losses and of course, waste. Core practices includes bio-based materials, circular agri-tech, zero waste strategies, refurbishing and remanufacturing digital products, passports, and upcycling and reuse. We need to look at this very carefully, and we need to understand what are the challenges behind and what we need to do to be able to assure that this is done in the most efficient way. As you can see in this slide, circular economy in agriculture and policies, we see that trade for agri-food byproducts and residues, like for example, soy byproducts of animal feed, enables resource valorization across border, aligning with circular economy goals, but it could also replicate existing trade imbalances and environmental risk, and that's what we need to minimize. Second, circular bioeconomy model is shifting from linear take-make-waste systems to one where agri-food waste is recycled, reused, or recovered, reducing demand for virgin inputs while supporting energy and material loops. Third, trade enhanced sustainability through exporting agricultural residues allows regions with processing capabilities to convert them into higher value products, like, for example, bioenergy or animal feed, aligning economic incentives with the circular practices. The implications, of course, as that cross-border flows of agri-food residues can support regional resource efficiency and waste reduction, and policymakers and businesses can leverage trade to build more resilient and circular agri-food systems. But as in any case, we have challenges and risks. And there are three, basically. First, the imbalance of trade flows. Second, limited circularity uptake. And third, a need for robust monitoring. In terms of the imbalances of trade flows, high-income countries often export agri-food-related waste or packaging to lower-income countries lacking adequate facilities. And this can result in an improper disposal or environmental harm, undermining circularity. In terms of limited circularity uptake, for example, across 29 European countries, the implementation of circular business models in the agri-food sector remains slow, hampered by weak policy frameworks, scarce infrastructure, and lack of integrated strategies. Third, regarding the need for robust monitoring, we need effective transition towards circular agri-food system supply chains, which requires a comprehensive framework with clear metrics spanning economic, environmental, and social dimensions. Here I just try to bring these topics in a graphic, in a figure. So essentially, we know that we can create byproducts and waste streams from crop residues, from food waste, and from packaging waste that can be processed and have a valorization in the international trade market, and that's where things operate efficiently. But also we know that this could create certain risks without a proper governance, like exporting of unmanaged food waste to low-income countries, leakage of recyclable materials due to weak tracking, and inequitable redistribution of circular value. So it's central that we have a mechanism of support systems through policies and regulations, monitoring frameworks, and infrastructure innovation to make the circular economy in agriculture and in the agri-food systems to work properly. FAO is dedicated to helping governments create policy frameworks to do and to achieve this goal. And these policy frameworks embed circularity within agri-food systems, ensuring sustainability across the entire food production and consumption cycle. FAO plays a key role in mainstreaming circularity in national agri-food policies through capacity building, supporting policy coherence across agriculture, trade, climate, facilitating multi-stakeholder platforms like the CFS or the HLPE, and enabling South-South cooperation on technology and policy transfer. In addition, we advise on extended producer responsibility, promoting subsidies for regenerative farming and bio-inputs, and assisting countries in setting recycling and organic waste targets. FAO also provides guidance on eco-design standards for agricultural products and facilitate the adoption of carbon and nutrient accounting tools to optimize environmental impact. For example, one of the most known tools of FAO for carbon accounting is the EXACT tool, which basically today measures all the carbon accounting for all the projects coming from the International Financial Organization. In addition, FAO fosters public-private partnerships to scale innovation solutions that drive sustainability, ensuring long-term resilience, and circularity in agriculture. Effective transitions to a circular economy in agriculture require, as I mentioned before, policy coherence across various sectors: agriculture, trade, environment, and climate. FAO is working closely with governments to align national frameworks with international goals, particularly Sustainable Development Goals. In the case of SDG 2, ending hunger, ensuring food security through sustainable agricultural practice, SDG 12, responsible production and consumption, promoting sustainable agricultural systems that minimize waste, and SDG 13, climate action, supporting agriculture's role in climate change mitigating and adaptation. In line with the Paris Agreement, FAO encourages governments to integrate climate strategies into national climate action plans, particularly in agri-food systems. And this helps countries to reduce their agricultural emissions while building resilience. FAO also supports the Coronivia joint work on agriculture, which brings agriculture to the forefront of climate policy dialogues, advocating for sustainable practice within climate discussions. A strong institutional capacity is essential, as I showed before in the graph. And this is essential for the success of the evergreen revolution. It enables agriculture to remain productive and sustainable without harming the environment or excluding the smallholder farmers from the benefits, and without, of course, affecting the most vulnerable countries. FAO has been supporting national ministries by designing science-based trade and SPS, sanitary and phytosanitary policies, ensuring that agricultural products meet safety standards for both domestic and international markets, building the regulatory framework and inspection capacities, strengthening national systems for SPSS compliance to guarantee safe and sustainable food systems, and enhancing digital readiness, supporting digital platforms like the FAO ITU e-agriculture strategy, which improve traceability, support digital value chains, and focuses inclusive participation in agricultural markets. To ensure effective governance, FAO strengthens inclusive governance platforms such as the Committee on World Food Security, CFS, which promotes science-based policy dialogues and facilitates meaningful engagement with a broad range of stakeholders. South-South and triangular cooperation is also a key area where FAO supports countries in sharing best practices and scaling up innovations. This includes everything from building sustainable trade pipelines to advancing circular agricultural systems. And here is where we need to keep accumulating evidence of what is working well, what are the necessary conditions of institutional governance, so that we can share across countries in the South, so that we can obtain the benefits of this type of technologies. But one topic that is super important and which we normally don't really act on it seriously, and this is the issue of food loss and waste. Today, 13% of the global food supply of post-harvest losses in value chains before reaching consumer is lost. 19% of food is wasted in retail and by consumers. So losses go up to wholesale included. Waste goes from retail to the consumer. So in total, we're talking of a third of our production. And this could feed around 1.26 billion people and also minimize greenhouse gas emissions already incurred. So a reduction of food loss and waste could reduce between 8 to 10% the greenhouse gas emissions. So food loss and waste plays an important role in the work of FAO to achieve security and fight climate change, and of course, in the concept and the topic that we're talking today. We need to understand not only the aggregate magnitude of food loss and waste, but we also need to understand where it occurs in the value chain. And we have developed two tools that all of you can access to. The first one is what we call the FLAP, F-L-A-P-P, which is the Food Loss App, which is basically a tool that it took us more than 2 years to develop scientifically, finding a way to measure losses across the value chain in a simple way through self-reporting of farmers, but being sure that we get through this mechanism is similar to basically doing a census on food loss and magnitudes. This tool is available. Right now you can download it as an app, but also you can immediately adapt it to the commodities of your country by basically selecting the attributes and the characteristics of the commodities we want to measure. This will help us not only to identify the magnitude of the losses, where they happen in the value chain, but it will also offer solutions, low-cost and high-cost solutions to the challenges that the farmer will report in terms of this problem. I hope this can be scaled up because this will help us to crowdsource information and to have a better understanding to minimize a problem which is extremely important to reduce, especially in a world today that we have around 673 million people in hunger. The second app is called OptiWaste, and OptiWaste is focusing on waste. not only in restaurants, not only in resorts, not only where buffets are provided, also in schools, in school feeding programs, but also at the consumer level. Because it helps us to bring the awareness and the behavioral change that is also needed. We know most of the waste is happening at the retail level and also specifically at the household level. And that's where we need to start changing our behavior to be able to make a difference. So these are two specific scientific-based contributions that we are doing that we believe could help to achieve the goals that we are trying to achieve in this process. Addressing food loss and waste is central, building a circular economy in agriculture, which improves efficiency, resilience, and sustainability throughout the agri-food value chain. There are clear impacts. We will have more high-value commodities available, which will improve the access to healthy diets. Today, 2.6 billion people don't have access to a healthy diet. Second, it will use our resources more efficiently, water, biodiversity, land, soil. And third, it will reduce emissions. The FAO Safe Food Initiative takes a holistic approach to food loss and waste, covering the entire journey from the production to consumption. It supports efforts in three critical areas: improve post-harvest handling and cold chains, which are crucial for reducing spoilage during storage and transportation, strengthening data systems to track food loss and waste and measure progress, as I mentioned before, and policy and infrastructure development that creates supportive environmental for tracking waste. FAO promotes transformative waste-to-value technologies that return agricultural residues and food waste into valuable resources. Regenerative agriculture and circularity converge in the climate-smart agriculture approach, which is being promoted by FAO in collaboration with national governments. The climate-smart agriculture is a vital transitioning to sustainable farming systems that are both resilient to climate change and capable of reducing environmental impact. And that's where the smartest come. We are really targeting ways in which we can make farmers resilient with their commodities to climate, but also at the same time reducing environmental impact. So it's a targeted strategy. It's not a generic strategy. That's why we call it climate-smart agriculture. FAO plays a key role in supporting regenerative agricultural practice such as crop livestock integration, which creates a more sustainable and efficient use of land, water, and resources; agroforestry, which increases biodiversity, improves soil health, and provides income diversification for farmers; organic soil amendments, which reduce reliance on chemical fertilizers, increase soil fertility, and enhance carbon sequestration, and especially reduce the waste in the use of fertilizers, because we will know exactly with soil maps what is the mix of fertilizers that you need, given the plant that you have and the soil that you have. And that will increase substantially efficiency in the use of fertilizer. In India, FAO is also supporting the zero-budget nature farming and conservation agricultural models that promote soil health, biodiversity, and minimal chemical inputs. In conclusion, building a strong enabling environment is essential for the circular economy. Key challenges include poor waste management, poor loss management, fragmented supply chains, financing barriers for farmers, and weak institutions. Through enhanced management of losses and waste systems, more efficient supply chains through digital platforms, greater investments in circular agricultural practices, and a strong incentive and institutional collaboration, governance, and institutionality to achieve also trade in this respect, to minimize the level of losses and waste, the circular economy and evergreen revolution can drive. Colleagues, let me finish by saying our major motto. What we are looking for is to have good food for all for today and tomorrow. And the circular economy and evergreen revolution is something that is a crucial element to assure that what we produce today, that we provide the right to food to people, can also happen tomorrow, because we will do it sustainable and trying to minimize losses and waste and trying to assure that our biodiversity, our soils, our water, and our climate is taken care of. Thank you very much, and let me stop there.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maximo Torero, for a very comprehensive and analytical presentation. Generally, after lunch, people, but today we were discussing about money. And because of that, everybody was awakening. So, that's a good thing. Thank you very much, because you covered three very important and basic aspects of modern agriculture. You talked about global trade, the dynamics of trade at regional as well as at global level, how different commodities are either increasing or decreasing, several trade-offs in these trades, And of course, all of us know the recent tariff scenario, which is also changing almost on a daily basis, affecting agriculture, not only in this country, but I think all over the world. So this is extremely, extremely important topic to discuss. Earlier, the major driver of agriculture, whether it in India or elsewhere, was production. We had to improve production more and more. But now the major driver is going to be market. Market will decide what kind of commodity we should produce and what kind of commodity we should not. And that is probably going to be the trend. So this is extremely important. Thank you very much for addressing this particular issue. Second one is, of course, circular economy. Extremely important again. And the topic of this conference, when you talk of agriculture biohappiness, I think that will only come if we follow the concept of circular economy. In fact, the whole agriculture is in that. Environment, ecology, economics, equity, equality, all these are related to this circular economy. Lots of good programs are going on in different places. For example, in this country, we have got a big program called Waste to Wealth. And it is going on for quite some time. Again, the basic principle is something like this. In ICA, that is Indian Council of Agriculture Research, we have got a separate institute on secondary agriculture. Again, the whole philosophy is how to improve the circular economy, creating wealth from waste and so on. And of course, last one, very, very importantly, you said that around 33%, 32% in your presentation, food which we are losing. So why to grow food when you are going to lose it? How to address that particular issue? And today morning we saw the presentation, how many people are still hungry, how many people are still suffering from malnutrition, not only in one part, I think many parts of the world. And if we compare that scenario with the one where we are wasting 32% of food, which we have produced with a lot of energy, water, nutrient, labor, and everything. So this is another very important aspect to really think about. Now, to sort out these issues, of course, again, I think the new science and new technology must play a very important role. Digital agriculture is certainly important, helping marketing, helping value addition, helping circular economy. But capacity building of not only farmers, but capacity building of policymakers and also researchers. At all levels, we really need to improve it. Otherwise, this whole complex issue of marketing, global trade-offs and those kinds of things are not going to be achieved. You also talked about regenerative agriculture. I shall not talk much about it because just before lunch, I made a presentation only on this particular topic. So extremely important, and again, let me tell you, globally through various CG centers, and of course our National Agriculture Research System partners like ICAR, lots of activities are going on for promoting and scaling regenerative agriculture principles. Thank you very much, Dr. Terrero, for his very comprehensive and very informative presentation. Thank you very much.
So our next speaker will be Professor Nitya Rao. Over to her, Nitya Rao, please.
Thank you very much, chairs. And thank you also, Maximo, for that really interesting and inspiring talk on the circular economy and global trade. I also would just like to say that I think my job has been made a little bit easier also by this morning's excellent talk by Professor Ismail Serageldin, who really set out the global challenges that we are facing in terms of climate change, in terms of biodiversity loss, hunger, conflict, and displacement. And most of all, he called the rising social inequality obscene. He said this is obscene, and how are we living with this kind of inequality? Showing us some stark pictures from Gaza of the man-made famine there, also using food as a weapon of war. So I just want to pick up from there and focus on addressing equity and justice as sort of the starting points for the food system transformation, for the move towards biohappiness that we are looking for. So this was a very famous, I think most of you know the statement, and this was something that Professor Swaminathan often would see as his lodestar and inspiration in terms of recalling the face of the poorest and weakest man you've seen, and ask yourself if the step you contemplate is going to be of any use to him. And of course, even though the male or the man has been used, I think for Gandhiji as well, the last person really was a woman. And the idea that science becomes meaningful and impactful when done with a concern for society. It's very important, I think he used to often say, and in one conversation with him, which we called as the ethics and politics of science, he said science is very important, but it has values underneath it, and these values are something which really should drive the direction of science, because science can be used both positively and negatively. And yesterday we heard about the case of the pugwash and so on, that, for the peace, and we had also the TWAS Prize on Food and Peace. So I think this is actually from Maximo last week. He spoke at the UN Food Systems Summit, where the Food Security and Nutrition in the World 2025 report was released on food price inflation. And while there is certainly an improvement in food and nutrition security, undernourishment globally, actually it was quite interesting to note that a large part of this improvement is due to new data coming from India, is what the report points out. And I think this speaks a lot, I think in particular probably for our public distribution system and the social protection we have in place after the right to food or the National Food Security Act has been passed, that really there's been huge improvement in undernourishment. But I think the interesting point was about inequalities, even in this report, that both moderate and severe food security inequalities persist, which are much higher in rural areas and also much higher amongst women and children. One of the statistics in the report is that a third of adult women and 65% of children below 2 don't consume the minimum dietary diversity. This is a new indicator of minimum dietary diversity introduced in this report. I think we also heard from Dr. Ismail about food systems also contributing to the transgression of the planetary boundaries. And I think I'm part of the Eat Lancet Commission, and I can't share the findings because the report will be launched in October at the Stockholm Food Forum. But I think the analysis in the report does show that out of the 9 planetary boundaries, 6 have already been transgressed, and 5 of these are because of the food system contributions in terms of the greenhouse gas emissions, the land use change and the biodiversity loss, the water, both blue and green water, which Dr. Ismail referred to, that 70% of water use actually goes into agriculture. Biodiversity loss, I was at the World Vegetable, they have just launched a global World Vegetable Rescue Plan. And I think it was very interesting to hear that even 80 years ago, so still in the 20th century, lettuce, they said there were 493 varieties of lettuce, and that has gone down in 80 years to 36. 463 varieties of radish in 1903 down to 27. So we've really seen an erosion of genetic and biological diversity over this period. And the diagram, the circle on the right is really, I think, something that Maximo has also mentioned, that the food systems contributes about 31% to this transgression of planetary boundaries. So if you're looking for biohappiness, if you're looking for a transformation of the food system, then we really need to address some of these issues. A third statistic which I want to give is, this is from the Global Hunger Index of 2024, where I wrote the background paper on gender equality for zero hunger and climate resilience. And what this graph basically shows is that in countries where gender inequality is higher, so as we move there, you tend to be much more food insecure and also not able to be resilient to the impacts of climate change. So there seems to be a sort of coupling together of gender inequality, hunger, and climate vulnerability. So what is the vision for food systems transformations? And I think this is the definition which I've picked from the Eat Lancet Commission report, that is basically about healthy food accessible to all, So irrespective of your social position, produced, processed, distributed, and consumed fairly and within planetary boundaries. This is very key. The part of the report which I have been involved with has been a new element. So the Eat-Lancet First Commission of 2019 really focused on a healthy diet within planetary boundaries. And this time there is a new dimension of actually a healthy, just and sustainable diet is very key to food systems and food systems transformations. Where does this start from? This starts basically from a human rights, respecting human rights approach. I remember Professor Swaminathan telling me that one of his happiest days was when he was still in the Rajya Sabha in 2013 when the National Food Security Act was passed. And he said he has seen the Bengal famine and to move from the Bengal famine to sort of food security for all and the right to food for all was very, very critical, which pays particular attention to marginalized groups and also fair and shared responsibilities, burdens, opportunities, and so on. So really here we are talking about the social foundations of a just food system, which will enable the practice of human rights, which is access to healthy food for all, opportunity to live in a healthy environment, I think pollution, environmental degradation, we are living in very sort of harsh environments, access to decent work, and also freedom and agency to engage with food systems. In India, we have also a National Food Systems Transformation Pathway. And I think what it has done is really paid attention, as we can see from the SOFI report, which I just presented, to food and nutrition security. We have heard over the last 2 days about the Nutri-Garden initiative, the midday meals, food-based safety nets, the right to food, of course, the nutrition component of the Anganwadi and the early childcare schemes. There's also been a lot of focus on livelihood security and economic development, especially women's SHGs, focus on backward regions, and so on. I think where there's a gap is when we look at this complex system, which Maximo just laid out before me, the interlinkages between climate, food, agriculture, energy, and biodiversity. We see that what we don't have in India as much focus on is on indicators for biodiversity protection, also for climate change mitigation and water use and access. I was at a book launch on the 6th of August in the name of Professor Swaminathan, and one of the speakers actually mentioned that nothing can be done really in our political system to change the incentives for, in terms of free electricity, groundwater depletion, and so on. So I think we don't yet have strong enough framework for that. This whole issue of incentives and subsidies, which many people have mentioned, is how do you reframe or reset these incentives and subsidies to offer context-specific benefits to poorer households to facilitate sustainable and ecological intensification. Maximo just mentioned the huge importance of reducing loss and waste, also nutrient recycling, natural farming, regenerative agricultural practices, and so on. And the third very critical element is employment generation, but also the need to generate green jobs and skill-based jobs. And this was, I just wanted to recall something which again Professor Swaminathan would say, that he was very happy that we have the right to work and the Mahatma Gandhi Nariga program, but it's only focused on manual labor. And he said for the youth of India today, we really need to include skill-based jobs, whether it is as climate risk managers, soil health managers, community hunger fighters, as he called them, or or care workers, really need to be included and recognized to give dignity also to young people in rural areas. So I just very quickly wanted to look at sort of systems. This is from a recent FAO report released just 2 weeks ago on the systems approach. And they identify 6 elements of a systems approach: systems thinking, changing the mindset, that is, systems knowledge, very important data and evidence, science is very critical, governance issues, doing, action. I think Renuji kept insisting that we have to move from just knowing to doing. Investment, the right kinds of investment, and systems learning. And I will just very quickly look at the underlying principles for moving towards biohappiness if we really are to do also systems change. And a lot of this actually draws from my conversations and the publications of Professor M.S. Swaminathan. So the first element really is about thinking multidimensionally. We cannot afford to think sectorally anymore. And he spoke about the 5 E's, which was environment and ecology, energy, equity and equitable knowledge systems, employment, and equity, including social and gender equity. This is also part of systems thinking. So the first dimension of the FAO framework is on systems thinking, and that systems thinking has to be multidimensional, keeping in view these 5 elements. The second is about knowledge. And here it is very important, I think this has been said by other speakers before me, but the respect for diverse knowledges. How do we dialogue between different kinds of agricultural knowledges, cultures, peoples? We talk about indigenous knowledge, we talk about traditional knowledge and local knowledge, but actually there is still a gap between science as we understand it, which is published in papers, and other kinds of knowledge. So how do we really have this dialogue and have a real interaction between these? Also making this research and knowledge very sensitive to context. I think somebody mentioned yesterday that we are talking about agroecological approaches, but we don't really have the science to implement these agroecological and regenerative approaches. We need to know the costs, the benefits, what needs to be done, what needs to be in store, and so on. So I think that's very important as a key systems principle. The third systems principle is governance. And I think this is really, in terms of governance, moving from a patronage or a top-down, I'm calling it a patronage or a welfare approach, but it's really what we used to see in India as my buck, top-down, government will do everything for the poor, towards a much more rights-based, decentralized approach, where we really consider our farmers, our village people, our youth as agents, as thinking people who will make right decisions. They don't have to necessarily be told from the top. I was at the UN Food Systems Summit +4 stocktake in Addis last week, and I was very impressed with the Brazilian case under President Lula now, where they have again set up, of course, the Ministry of Land Reform and Family Farms. But they also have something called the Brazil's Indigenous Food Acquisition Program, which is very similar to our public procurement program for the public distribution system. But it also ensures, particularly for indigenous people, procuring local foods to ensure culturally appropriate school meals. So some of the work I've been doing more recently in the Santhal Parganas in Jharkhand has been on mapping local foods, both cultivated foods as well as foraged foods, doing a nutritional analysis of these foods and recipes to identify the shortfalls of macro and micronutrients, to really recognize some of these tribal knowledges, choices and practices. Where we are really struggling with this work is to take that final step in terms of institutionalization. We've produced the science, but how can we then get that policy commitment to procure some of these local foods, to provide in school meals or school hostels or whatever it is in tribal areas? It can have multiple purposes: to reduce stigma, enable livelihood security by giving an income, and also enhancing the agency and empowerment of these local communities. The fourth principle is doing, is systems doing. And here, very important, we've heard about this in the previous session as well, about youth as agents of change. I was involved in one of the HLP reports. I was also fortunate to be a member of the high-level panel of experts to the Committee on World Food Security for 4 years, from 2019 to 23, at which point I had the oversight of the 2021 Report 16 on promoting youth engagement and employment in agricultural and food systems. I think youth are very active. They have a lot of knowledge. They have access to digital technologies, to other kinds of technologies. They are smart with that. We really need to make sure that the enabling environment is there in terms of access to resources. Representation, very important in decision-making bodies. I've been working at the global level with some of these youth groups, and they say that they get a seat at the global table, but actually at national level, they are finding it very difficult to influence decision-making bodies. So I think this is something that we really need to shift. And also, of course, giving youth recognition in legal and policy frameworks such as social finance, new forms of innovation finance, skills training, which has come up again and again. Professor Swaminathan's favorite phrase was that, when he heard that the youth are leaving agriculture, he said that the agri-food systems need to be both economically rewarding and intellectually stimulating for young people. The fifth is about investments. I think we need investments in long-term transformation. And a couple of principles here. I think this has been said again by several people, including Professor Seregeldin in the morning, that one of the keys to the green revolution and now to the evergreen revolution will be the partnership, a truly equitable partnership between farmers, scientists, and policymakers. Have to work hand in hand. One alone cannot do it. Second thing, investments in science. Many people before me have said it, and this is a plea from me as well, to support evidence-based decision making. And the third thing is really to move beyond our own disciplines, to engage with interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary research with indigenous, local, and scientific knowledge systems. The sixth is really about learning, systems learning. And this is key, that the systems learning needs to again be bottom up. It needs to be people-centered learning. I think many of us as academics, as researchers, as policy makers, we need to unlearn and relearn based on the changing needs of the communities, particularly the farming communities, in terms of, systems for food, soil, water conservation, biodiversity conservation, both in situ, the cultivation, how do we use soil health, and so on. At the same time, paying attention, as Maximo pointed out before me, to trade, commerce, how can we ensure procurement and territorial markets, and also consumption of a healthy diet. And this is my final slide, is where I started from, but this is an area which I'm very passionate about and work on, which is really on gender equality and social justice as very central to climate and food. I mentioned earlier that we do have statistical evidence now about the linkages between gender equality, climate and food justice, and a couple of things that we've been hearing over the last 2 days, which I just wanted to put on this last slide. I think it is coming out from the farmers' movement, from the women's movement, in terms of the 3 or the 4 R's, if you like, of recognition of women as farmers with equal entitlements to resources, be it material, financial, knowledge. In the earlier session, I had mentioned that Professor Swaminathan's dream was having the Women Farmers Entitlement Bill, which he introduced in Parliament in 2011, which didn't go through. So I think this was really about the legal recognition to create an enabling environment. It will enable the redistribution of public resources equitably, especially social protection measures. In the previous session, Dr. Rangalakshmi of MSSRF mentioned clean water and energy as very important. There was also the issue that came up from the audience on maternity entitlements, on equal wages, and on childcare services for women, particularly women farmers in particular. The third is about reduction in the drudgery of work, both productive work and reproductive work, by strengthening public health, education, and care systems. And finally, the issue of addressing the continuing unequal institutional norms in terms of women's leadership, women's representation, women's voice in decision-making around their lives. Still, we heard that there are a lot of social norms that are holding back women. We have to break this somehow by focusing also in the agriculture space, I think, on much more, as you are doing with ICRISAT, Dr. Pathak, on research and investment on women-controlled crops, like the legumes, like the millets, which really are women's crops, vegetables. I think we need to invest much more into this, into women's needs and priorities as farmers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Rao, for a very passionate presentation. Not only comprehensive, not only analytical, but also very, very passionate about food system transformation. Thank you also very much for invoking Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, in the very beginning, also reminding us through him about the last person, which is even today is a kind of distant reality. Also reminding us about 1943, Great Bengal famine, to 2013, when this National Food Act, Right to Food came. So this journey of 70 years and how Professor was so passionate and very closely related to each and every step, starting from science, technology, policy, parliament, and at everywhere what he did. Friends, all of you, I'm sure you know a very famous quote of Professor is that the world needs more grains, not guns. But unfortunately, many nations are still running and spending more for guns rather than grains. Thank you very much also bringing about these planetary boundaries. Unfortunate that 6 we have already crossed, about 9, and then of course greenhouse gas emission, climate change and so on. But also sharing with us about some improvement in India's status over some decades. and hope this will continue. In many countries it has improved, but then there are several countries where there is no significant change or even deteriorated. So this is another big concern about that. Another very importantly, which you mentioned, is not only Manrega, not only a kind of job, but skill-oriented job. And that is more and more required, particularly for our youth who are now educated, having some kinds of skill in digital agriculture, computer, and all kinds of new tools and technologies which are available. Another good development is nutrition. Of course, yesterday Honorable Prime Minister also mentioned about it. And you will be very happy to know that ICAR till now has released around 200 varieties which are biofortified. And those varieties includes crops like rice, wheat, and of course so on. System approach, all these 6 points which you mentioned are extremely, extremely important. And of course, respecting food, respecting farmer, that we really need. But then the base of all these things, or many solutions, will come from science and technology. In each and every point, all these 6 and others, I think science and technology is really going to play a very, very important role. And then, of course, all of us are directly, indirectly connected to that one. And, of course, data to make decision making. So data and decision both should go hand in hand. Of course, in the process, we must learn many things, unlearn several things which you correctly mentioned, and also relearn most of the things rather. Because many of the things which have worked, say around 30, 40 years back, those might not work. We really need to unlearn and relearn several of these things. And of course, women's crop, gender, which is of course your own subject, and many organizations, including ICRISAT and ICAR, are going to work on that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Rao, for this very passionate presentation, sharing lots of information. Thank you.
2 quick takeaways as far as I am concerned. The first, I almost fell off my chair when I saw the data which Dr. Marimo put up. The world wastage of food, 1.2 billion. India's population is 1.4 billion. So virtually one country's population constitutes the wastage of food. It's such a serious issue to be addressed. The second takeaway was from Professor Nitya Rao's presentation in that report, which is very important. The entire issue about the 6 systems approach. So which means finally agriculture is going through a formal systems approach to see the conclusion of a formal type of an economy. That is what is the need of the hour. And one more data point which I wanted to share in the beginning, I forgot, I'll do it now. The world GDP is $112 trillion, India is 4 trillion. India is about 5%, less than 5% of world GDP, but Indian population is 17% of the world GDP. And still our cultivable area is 60%. India's cultivable agricultural area is 60%. So why I'm saying this is, of course, agriculture as a percentage of GDP is come down to 17%, services has taken over. We are very well positioned and poised to really take a front lead role in transforming the agricultural agenda for the world, not only for our country. And these issues which we have discussed in the last 2 days are going to be the real trend setters. And if we get our act right in actioning out all these issues, we will lead the world as far as agriculture is concerned. Thank you, Dr. Marimo, and thank you, Professor Nitya Rao, for a wonderful presentation, and Himanshu sir for so ably conducting the proceedings. Thank you one and all, please.
Thank you, sir. As a token of our respect and gratitude, I'd like Mr. Anand Raghavan to present the memento to Professor Nitya Rao. And I'd request Professor Nitya Rao to present the mementos to both our chairs. Mr. Anand Raghavan. Dr. Himanshu Pathak.
Thank you.
And Mr. Anand Raghavan.
Samne, we'll come, we'll go to photo. Oh, yes.
Dr. Maximo, we'll just take a group photo, so if you can be on screen for a moment.
Sure, no problem.
அதான் நினச்சேன்.
டீ பிரேக்னா போல யாருமே.
The next session begins at 3:30, so I'd request all of you to regroup here at 3:30.
டீ சொல்லு, உங்களை போகிறாங்க தெரியும் அவங்களுக்கு. ஆனால் இப்போ தான் சாப்பிட்ட மாதிரி இருக்குது. உடனே ஏன் டீ போட்டாங்க? சாப்பிட்டு ஒன்று தானே இருக்குது. நேற்று இந்த மாதிரி இல்லை, உடனே இல்லை டீ. Shiv Digital Technologies. Nidhi based Foundation. Okay, yeah.
We have a tea break now, so you might want to go get some tea and come back here at around 3:25 for the next session. There are also parallel sessions that are happening at the hall on your left and right. At C2, we have parallel session on harnessing biodiversity nutrition. And at C3, we have a parallel session on science-led pathways to sustainable rice and wheat production. All of this will begin at 3:30. So I'd request all of you to go get some tea and come back.
சரி ஓகே அது போட்டு ரெடி பண்ணு ஃபோட்டோகிராஃப் ஓகே இதில் அது இந்த ஷிவ் டிஜிட்டல் டெக்னாலஜி அண்ட் ஆர்டிஃபிஷியல் இருக்கு அது யார் பேசுகிறாங்க ஷிவ் டிஜிட்டல் டெக்னாலஜி அண்ட் ஆர்டிஃபிஷியல் இங்கெல்லாம் பேர் ஓப்பன் பண்ணி பார்த்தீங்கன்னா மோஸ்ட்லி பேர் போட்டிருப்பாங்க ஆத்தர் வந்து ஆரி மார்கன் இருக்குது ஆரி மார்கன் இது இருக்குது ஷிவ் ஷர்மான்ற பேரே இல்லை ஷிவ் ஷர்மான்ற நேமே இல்லை மைக்ரோசாஃப்ட் யார் பேசுகிறாங்க மைக்ரோசாஃப்ட் ஆள் மாறிட்டாங்கன்னு நினைக்கிறேன் அவங்க ஷிவ் ஷர்மா இருக்கா பாருங்க ஷிவ் ஷர்மா எந்த கொள்கை